Wait, don't scroll. Please don't skip this story. I swear on everything. This took me so much effort to create. If you have a strong heart, watch it till the end. Because tonight, you won't sleep after hearing this. Just start at once. You won't be able to stop. And please, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.
The old church stood on the far edge of the forgotten town, half swallowed by wild trees and creeping fog. Built in 1842, it once echoed with hymns and prayers, but now the only sounds were the hollow moans of wind pushing through its broken windows. The wooden cross above the entrance leaned dangerously, as if exhausted from carrying more than just its own weight. Locals refused to go near it. Even during the day, the church radiated a coldness that didn't belong to weather. Stories whispered through generations. Stories about shadows moving behind the stained glass windows long after the church had been abandoned. Stories of people who entered and never came back. Stories of screams muffled by the thick stone walls. According to the town record, the church closed after a series of unexplained deaths. 3 choir boys were found lifeless in the prayer hall, their faces frozen in terror, though their bodies showed no injuries. A week later, the priest, Father Elijah, vanished without a trace. His final journal entry was found on the altar, saying only, "Forgive me, Lord, I could not stop them." After that night, the church door sealed itself. No one dared to reopen it. But the strangest part was what happened after midnight. Passers-by claimed they saw a faint golden glow inside the church, as if candles were being lit, though no one had stepped inside for decades. Others swore they heard the church bell ringing at impossible hours, echoing through the empty town with a slow, heavy toll. The police investigated once. Only once. They left before sunset and refused to return. The official report simply said, "Structure unsafe," but the people knew the truth. Something still lived inside that church. Something that was never meant to be disturbed.
Midnight settled over the abandoned church like a suffocating blanket. The moon was hidden behind thick gray clouds, leaving the entire area drenched in near-total darkness. Her friends, Asim, Hassan, Bilal, and Saad, stood outside the rusted iron gate, each pretending they were not afraid. They had dared each other many times to enter the church, but tonight was the first time they had actually come this close. Asim pushed the gate. It groaned loudly, its rusty hinges crying out like something waking from a long sleep. A cold breeze brushed past them, sending a shiver through the group. "Midnight," Hassan whispered, checking his phone. "If we're doing this, we do it now." They walked toward the massive wooden door. Even though no one touched it, the door creaked open by itself, slowly, unwillingly, almost as if something inside was expecting them. The moment they stepped in, the temperature dropped sharply. Their breath turned white in the air. Dust floated everywhere, illuminated by the weak moonlight slipping through the shattered stained glass windows. The silence inside wasn't normal silence. It was thick, heavy, like the whole building was listening. The door behind them slammed shut. All 4 jumped. "Relax, it's just the wind," Saad said, but even he didn't sound convinced. Their footsteps echoed unnaturally loud on the old wooden floor, each step stretching longer than it should, like the sound was chasing them. Asim's flashlight flickered. Hassan's phone vibrated suddenly, though there was no signal. The screen showed 12:01 a.m., but the clock kept glitching, jumping backwards to 12:00, then forward again. Bilal pointed toward the altar. "Did you guys hear that?" A soft, dragging sound came from deeper in the church, slow, rhythmic, deliberate. Something knew they had arrived. Something was waiting. The 4 friends stepped deeper into the church, their footsteps echoing across the vast, hollow hall. The air felt stale, almost too heavy to breathe. Dust-covered wooden benches lined both sides of the aisle, long, ancient pews that hadn't been touched for decades. Bilal ran his fingers across the nearest bench. "These things look like they'll collapse if we sit." Before he could finish, a loud crack echoed. All 4 froze. The bench directly in front of them shifted an inch, slowly, as though someone invisible had pushed it from behind. "No way, that was the wind," Asim whispered, stepping back. Another bench scraped across the floor. This time the sound was harsh, wood grinding against old stone, sending chills up their spines. The friends instinctively tightened together. One pew after another began to move. First a slow shuffle, then a deliberate drag, then a violent shudder, like something beneath the floor was lifting them. Eson's flashlight flickered wildly. The beam shook across the room, catching glimpses of shadowy figures between the benches, shapes that vanished the moment the light touched them. Back up! Back up! Sod shouted. The benches suddenly jerked forward all at once, blocking the aisle behind them, forming a barrier, closing them in. The sound was loud enough to vibrate through their chests. Bilal grabbed Asim's arm. They're arranging themselves. He was right. The benches were moving into a pattern, forming a narrow path leading straight toward the darkened corridor at the far end of the church, as if guiding them, or trapping them. Then, the worst sound came. A deep, slow thump under the floorboards. Then another. Something was moving below them. Something large. The benches trembled. The floor creaked. And the dragging sound continued. Closer, closer, like something unseen was crawling up from under the church just to reach them. The narrow path created by the moving benches led straight toward the pulpit, the raised wooden platform where the priest once delivered sermons. But now, it stood in darkness, its edges swallowed by shadows so thick that even Hassan's shaking flashlight couldn't pierce them fully. As the friends approached, the air grew colder. The silence became sharper, heavier, almost painful. It felt as if the entire church was holding its breath. Then it came, a faint, cracked whisper. At first, they couldn't tell where it was coming from. It drifted through the hall, bouncing off the walls, circling around them like a cold breeze. Did someone say something? Bilal whispered. The voice grew clearer. This time, unmistakably from the pulpit. Asim raised his flashlight toward the dark platform. The beam shook violently in his hand. Someone, stood behind the pulpit. A vague shape, hunched, unmoving. The whisper continued, a trembling old man's voice speaking in a language none of them recognized. It was raspy, broken, filled with hate and pain. Saad stepped back. Guys, that's not human. The whisper suddenly stopped. For a split second, the silence was absolute. Then the voice came again, this time louder, angrier, closer. Leave. The benches behind them rattled. The pulpit creaked. The shadow behind it twitched, its head jerking unnaturally, like bones grinding against each other. Eson's phone vibrated violently in his pocket. He pulled it out with trembling hands. On the dark screen, words appeared by themselves. He is still here. The voice rose into a furious hiss, echoing through the church, vibrating the air around them. The shadow behind the pulpit slowly lifted its head, revealing hollow, dark voids where eyes should have been. The whisper became a growl, and the growl was meant for them. The whispering from the pulpit faded into a suffocating silence, the kind that seemed to wrap its cold fingers around their throats. Asim tried to steady his flashlight, but the beam had begun to flicker like a dying candle. The air felt heavier, thicker, almost charged with something unseen. Saad swallowed hard. We need to get out of here. Now. Before anyone could move, the temperature dropped again, this time violently. Their breaths burst out in white clouds. The walls groaned as if the entire building exhaled at once. Then it happened. Every source of light, flashlights, phone screens, even the faint moonlight slipping through the broken windows, blinked out. Instant. Total. Blackout. A darkness so absolute, so heavy, it felt like a living thing pressing against their skin. Bilal gasped loudly. I can't see. I can't see anything. Their voices shrank in the enormous hall, swallowed instantly. No echoes. Only silence. Then, softly, a tapping sound began. Tap, tap, tap. It moved around them in the dark, circling them, speeding up slowly. Ehsan tried turning on his phone, but it refused to respond. Dead. Completely dead. Asim, he whispered. No reply. Instead, a cold finger, too long, too thin, brushed against Saad's neck. He jerked backward, tripping over a bench he could not see. Something exhaled in the darkness. Slow. Wet. Close. A deep, vibrating hum built up around them, like a generator powering on, but there was no machine in this church. The floorboards trembled under their feet. Suddenly, the tapping stopped. Silence. Then a single loud knock echoed right beside Asim's ear, so close he felt the vibration in his skull. His phone finally flickered on for half a second. just long enough for them to see a face inches from theirs, pale, hollow, with a wide, unnatural smile. And when the light went out again, it didn't go alone. The darkness lifted slowly, like a heavy veil being peeled back. A faint, trembling light flickered from Asim's phone, barely enough to illuminate the dust swirling in the cold air. But it was enough to reveal one horrifying detail. They were no longer standing alone. Above them, near the ruined rafters of the ceiling, something hung in the shadows. At first, it looked like a torn piece of cloth swaying gently. But as the phone's dying light grew stronger, the shape sharpened, long, slender, disturbingly human. Bilal sucked in a sharp breath. "Guys, look up." The figure dangled just below the rafters, suspended by nothing. No rope, no chain. Its dark, distorted silhouette hovered a few inches above the wooden beam, as if gravity had no control over it. Its arms hung unnaturally long, almost reaching its feet, and its head drooped forward at an impossible angle. Then it moved. Not like a swing, not like something caught in the wind. It twitched, a sharp, broken jerk, as if its bones cracked with each motion. The phone flickered again. For one horrifying second, the light hit its face. There were no eyes, just hollow black pits stretching too wide, too deep, like tunnels carved into a skull. The mouth was a torn slit, stitched with darkness, hanging open in a silent scream. Saad grabbed Asim's arm. "It's looking at us." The shadow twitched again, this time lifting its head slowly, painfully, until its empty sockets aligned perfectly with the trembling group. Then it began to descend. Not falling, not climbing. It floated down, stiff and controlled, like a puppet being lowered by invisible strings. An icy wind spiraled around them, thick with the smell of damp soil and rot. The benches rattled on both sides, responding to the entity's presence. The shadow's feet touched nothing, yet it kept descending, closer and closer, until the cold from its hollow form wrapped around their bodies like a shroud. And the church finally exhaled. The hanging shadow drifted lower, its hollow head tilting as if studying them. Fear locked their limbs, but pure instinct pushed them back. They stumbled toward the aisle, toward the only direction that wasn't blocked by the benches. "Bilal, move." Asim shouted, but Bilal wasn't moving. He stood frozen, staring at the descending shadow. His eyes were wide, unfocused, as if he were hearing something the others couldn't. "Bilal." Ehsan grabbed his shoulder and shook him hard. Bilal finally blinked, but instead of stepping back, he whispered, Someone is calling me." A cold chill swept through the church. Before they could react, a piercing scream erupted, not from Bilal, but from deep inside the building. It echoed through the walls, vibrating the floor beneath their feet. The lights flickered, and in that split second of darkness, Bilal was gone. "Asim, where is he?" "Where?" Saad yelled, spinning around with his flashlight. Nothing. No footsteps. No rustling. No sign he had even moved. Just empty space where he had stood a moment ago. Then Ehsan's shaking hand pointed toward the far corridor, a narrow, crooked hallway swallowed in darkness. His phone looked. A dim, flickering glow shimmered on the floor deep inside that corridor. Bilal's phone lay there, screen cracked, vibrating as if someone, or something, was repeatedly touching it. The screen displayed a message typed automatically. "Help me." Another message appeared instantly on its own. "He took me." The church groaned loudly, like something massive had shifted beneath it. A scraping sound echoed from the corridor, slow and heavy, like something dragging a body across stone. Asim stepped forward, heart hammering. "Bilal," he shouted. No answer, just the fading vibration of the abandoned phone, and the shadow floating silently behind them. Asim slowly lifted Bilal's cracked phone from the cold stone floor, his hands trembling. The screen went dark instantly, as if whatever had been typing moments ago no longer needed it. The corridor ahead pulsed with a faint, unnatural vibration, as if the church itself was breathing. "We need to find him," Saad whispered, his voice breaking. Ehsan pointed toward the altar. "Wait, look." Something lay on the dusty wooden platform, an old, leather-bound book, edges worn, pages yellowed with age. The cover was marked with a faded cross, but deep scratches had clawed through it, as if someone tried desperately to destroy it. Asim picked it up. The leather felt warm, too warm. "It's a diary," he murmured. Esan flipped it open cautiously. The first few pages were normal entries, dates from 1842, written by Father Elijah, the priest who vanished. But as the pages turned, the handwriting changed, becoming shaky, frantic, terrified. One page read, "Something is wrong beneath this church. I hear footsteps where no one walks." Another, "The children hear voices. They say the shadows speak to them." Saad swallowed hard. This is bad, really bad. Then they reached the final entry, written in thick, almost carved strokes. "They are not spirits. They are not demons. They are something older. They came from below. They want the living." Below it, a single line was underlined 3 times. "This place is no longer holy." Before they could react, a violent thud shook the pulpit. The candles, unlit for decades, flared to life on their own, filling the hall with a sickly yellow glow. The diary snapped shut in Asim's hands. A whisper rose from behind the altar, low, trembling, familiar. It said Bilal's name. The whisper calling Bilal's name died as suddenly as it had begun, replaced by a silence that felt even more dangerous. The sickly yellow candlelight shivered across the church walls, casting long, trembling shadows that looked almost alive. Esan stepped back. "We shouldn't be here anymore. We need to leave. Now." But before they could move, a cold gust swept through the hall, strong enough to make the flames bend sideways without flickering out. The air thickened, vibrating with an invisible tension. Then, dung, a deep, thunderous bell rang overhead. All 3 froze. The church bell tower had been condemned for years. The rope was cut. No one could ring it. Yet the sound boomed again. Dung. Dust fell from the ceiling in heavy clouds. The floor trembled beneath their feet. The benches creaked violently, as if reacting to the bell's call. Saad covered his ears. "Make it stop! Make it stop!" But the bell only rang harder, each strike shaking the entire building. Dung, dung, dung. The candles blew out all at once. Darkness swallowed them whole. Asim fumbled for his phone. The screen flickered on for half a second, just long enough to show a message. "IT wakes when the bell calls." Thunder rumbled through the church, except there was no storm. The bell continued to strike, slower now, heavier, as if something massive was climbing down with each toll. A new sound joined it, a distant dragging noise from the tower stairs. Something was descending, deliberately, slowly, matching each bell strike. Esan whispered, shaking uncontrollably. "It's coming down, whatever rang it, it's coming." The final bell strike echoed so loudly that the stained glass windows cracked. Then, thud. Something reached the bottom of the bell tower, and it was not human. The final thud from the bell tower echoed through the church like a death sentence. The air grew impossibly cold. Even breathing felt difficult, each breath shallow and trembling. Asim, Esan, and Saad stood frozen, staring toward the dark corridor leading to the tower. A new sound emerged. Slow, heavy, uneven steps, as if something enormous and broken was walking toward them. Saad backed up until his shoulders hit the wall. "We're going to die. We're going to move," Asim shouted, grabbing both of them. They sprinted toward the main door, their footsteps pounding across the wooden floor. But halfway across the hall, the benches shifted again, sliding violently, blocking their path like a wooden maze coming to life. Behind them, the footsteps grew louder. Thump, thump, thump. The thing was close. Esan climbed over a bench, landing hard on the other side. "This way," he yelled. They pushed, climbed, and stumbled through the shifting benches, each second filled with the echo of that monstrous walk drawing nearer. The entire church trembled as if reacting to its presence. Finally, they reached the entrance. The massive wooden door, locked, dead, sealed for decades, suddenly burst open with a violent force, slamming against the wall. Cold night air rushed inside like the church itself had taken a breath. "Go!" Asim screamed. They ran out, tripping over the broken stone steps, sprinting across the overgrown yard. Behind them, the bell tower groaned, and a low roar, deep, ancient, furious, shook the night. But the creature did not follow. It stood at the threshold, trapped by the boundary of the church grounds. Its shadow stretched across the doorway, long, twisted, impossible, in the moonlight. The candles inside extinguished. The door slammed shut on its own. Saad collapsed, gasping. We made it." But Asim didn't speak. he stared back at the church, because just before the door closed, he saw Bilal's face in the darkness, watching them leave. And before this video ends, let me say one thing straight from the heart. I put my time, effort, and soul into bringing these stories to life for you. If you felt even a little chill, a little excitement, or even a moment where your heart skipped, then please don't leave without supporting this channel. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the bell icon, because your one small click gives me the strength to create the next story for you. Thank you for being here. Stay safe, and remember, the darkness is never empty.